This video goes over what is a UML diagram and how to use it to create classes, and also how to document classes using Java documentation. So a UML diagram is a universal specification chart, if you will, which is like a contract between the customer and the software developer. So when the customer would like to create a software object, then a class or a template needs to be written. So what goes into the class, what goes into the specification of the object, the software object, is given in the UML diagram. For example, here is a UML diagram for a car class. So I'm just going to put the name of the class here. And as we can see here, the attributes of the class, that is those variables that contain the data related to the class, are make, model, color, year, and the mileage of the car. The negative sign here, it indicates that these are to be private. So if you have a car, then you don't want necessarily a program that meddles and changes this information. The comments here, they are details about what these variables mean. Then we have methods. Methods are like behaviors of the object. So how can the car be constructed? What can the car do? Here we see two methods. Most of the methods you will see have a plus sign, which means that they are public methods. These are not public static methods. They are instance methods, which means every object will have a copy of its own data and also a copy of its own methods. The two very important methods here are the constructors. You can have multiple constructors. There is a default constructor here which does not have any parameters. And then we have a custom constructor. So it's as though these constructors are automatically called. They do not have any return value. They are automatically called whenever we create a new object. And these parameters are used to initialize the variables which form part of the data. Right? So if, for example, we construct a car, which is a BMW, which is a certain model, and which is a pink BMW which was manufactured in 2023, then that's the information that's going to go into the parameters, and that's what's going to be set in these variables. Now, usually in a class, we have various kinds of methods. One kind of method is the getter. Another kind of method is the setter. And then we have other methods that are specific to that class. Getters are usually like the dials on our car, which display information about these variables. For example, get make, get model, get year, get color, as you can see. It's like having or either punching a button or having this information displayed on your dash, if you will. And these are available for all classes. The setters are used to change. For example, if we had a car and we wanted to change the speed, then the accelerator would be a physical manifestation of a setter that can be actually used to change the speed of the car. So setters change stuff. So now the colon indicates the return type. So as you can see, setters don't return anything. They usually take an input value, which is used to change. Getters return because they're supposed to display, and usually they do not have any input parameters. One very ubiquitous method also is the toString method, which is the string representation of the object. So for example, a car in software is not a real car. It's a software car. So how would you represent it? Usually, the toString method would return the values of all of these variables. So it would give the current snapshot, if you will, of what is the make, model, year, and the current mileage. So that's what the toString method. All classes in Java have toString, and if you don't write one, it's just going to call whatever was written in the object class. Now, so sometimes your IDE will automatically write getters and setters for you, and that's also possible. Now here I have an additional method called move, which would actually make the car sort of move in a software way. What is the meaning of moving? It means changing the mileage. So this method, which actually have the input of the number of miles that's going to increase, and it's going to change this variable here. So having this information gives a very clear contract between the customer and us, the software developers, as to how we are going to design a software version of the car. So, and how we are going to create the car template. So let's move on to variables here. We can take the name of once we have the UML diagram, it is a simple matter of simply translating this English into Java code. So here, this is the name of the class, and I've got public class car. All of the fields here, the negative gets translated into private. The type it remains the same, and the variable names remain the same. So as you can see, I've simply taken this and created declarations. Now the default constructor comes in here because it sets everything to blank. I have made this public because it's a plus here, and that sets it to 0. The custom, we will come to this Java documentation later. Now the custom constructor simply sets values to these variables. So when the user specifies, please give me these factory settings, then it simply says sets the current variables to the incoming. Now why do I have this dot make? It's because this refers to the current object. Otherwise I would be doing something silly like make is equal to make, and that doesn't make sense. So when I say this dot make, it means the make that's defined here is going to be set to the input parameter make. So for example, if you wanted to create your car and you wanted to set the make to Toyota, then Toyota would come in here, and that the variable make would be set to Toyota. And if you wanted to set the car to purple, then the incoming variable here would have the value purple, and the variable color is going to get set to the value purple. So, and so on. So as you can see, every single method here has got its equivalent, Java equivalent, right? Now, when you get this template, I have written the constructors for you, and I've also written one sample method. For example, the get make and the set make and the toString method. And wherever you see the comments to do, it means you are expected to insert the code. So then now it's going to be your task to look at the UML and also look at my solutions here and simply insert a single line of code where you're asked to do stuff. Now, once this is done, we also, when we create classes, I would just like to talk about Java documentation before I start to use this class. When we create a class, we sell this class to the customer, and we do not often give them the source code. We just give them executable code saying, well, here is a class, and here is the API or the methods that you can use to interact with the car objects that you will create, or you're allowed to create when in your client program, or the driver. So, and the driver is your main program here, which can now, because you've got the car class, you can say car mine is equal to new car, and you can say something like the make is going to be BMW, the model is going to be, I have no idea, I'm just going to be some model, and the year is going to be 2022, and the color is going to be purple. So I can absolutely now use this template to create in my main program cars, and I've called this one, this car is mine, and I can call methods like mine.getMake. I can do mine.move, make the car move and give it some value, and so on. So once you as a software designer have created the template, it can be used by the customer to create cars and make the cars do stuff, display information, do some action, and so on and so forth. So, but the source code is not going to be available to the customer. What we will give them is just the API. What is the API? The API are the bunch of methods that the customer can use to interact with the software car. In order to give the customer some documentation, Java itself has a lot of Java documentation, and all the Java classes are completely documented. And that's all we get when we want to use Java classes. So in the same way, as designers who are designing classes, we are expected to provide documentation for the customer. So the Java documentation is very simple. It consists of having a few tags, and then I will run the class to show you what the HTML is going to look like, which the HTML containing the documentation looks like. So here inside our code, we are going to insert some tags, and that will help us to create an HTML document which we can give to the customer and say, I'm not going to give you any code. I will just give you an executable file that you can download and create your cars. But here is a document that you can use to interact. Here's a document that you can use which contains all the interaction information. So here, JavaDoc starts with a / and 2 stars instead of in the block comments, we just have 1. And it ends the way the block comments end. You can also use regular stars for comments, but a couple of tags here are author and version, right? So author has my name on it, version is just the initial. Some important tags are param, throws, and return. Now, every method that we write is expected to have the documentation so that the user knows how to use the method. So for example, I have created the JavaDoc just before my constructor, and I use the add param tag. Now I've said I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters, so 4 tags, 1 for each of the parameters with a description of what these parameters are. And then I also have got I've also got a add throws, which is what does this method do if it gets some illegal argument? What is the meaning of that? Now, it could very well happen that someone gives you a illegal argument. For example, what I could do here is I could say if year, the incoming year, equals, if someone says the year is 000, that's not acceptable. Then the method is going to throw illegal argument exception. It's going to throw a new one, and it will simply exit. So the customer needs to know that if someone is not careful about the input, then an exception is going to occur. So this information is there in the JavaDoc. All right. So the biggest piece here is for the constructor because it has got 4 parameters, and that's already given to you. Another sample of using the return tag is right here, where the getMake method returns the value of make. So you are expected to insert the @return tags for one of these methods, the get model. And I've also given an example of how to use a simple @param tag, which gives some information about the input parameter, and you are expected to insert the @param tag for the set model method. So, so when you get the template, you will know what to do. Now, I would like to close this UML, and I would like to go to my JGrasp and show you the main program. So here I've got car.java. I will not show you this because this is, this is complete implementation of the car class, but I will use a completed car class to create cars in my main program. So as you can see, because I've got a car.java, I've created a main program called carmain.java. Create two cars, my car and your car, with these parameters. So the constructor gets called here. I've actually asked the factory to create a Honda Civic 2020, which is white, and another car, which is an orange Toyota Sienna 2022. Use the toString method to print my first car. Use the toString method to print the second car. Make the cars move. Change the color of the cars. And then print the changes. So I've used the getter methods, and also print out the final representation of the car. Now, so when we run our this program, here's what the toString method is going to print for us. Initially, the make model of the car was a factory setting. We changed the color of my car to green, changed the color of your car to changed the model of your car to Civic, and then made the cars move. And then now as you can see, initially the mileage was 0. Here the mileage is, the cars have actually moved and they've gone a little bit of the distance. All right, so now to go to what does the Java documentation look like. I have completed the Java documentation, so I will just click on this book icon, which generates a documentation. So it takes all our tags and creates a document that looks like this. So you see, this is the car class that we created. Oh, I should have gone here to car.java and now create the documentation for car.java. So this is our car class. As you can see, all the fields are here. So the user doesn't necessarily need all our code. By just looking at the documentation, they know what is the internal state of the car. The constructors are given here. All the methods are given here. And you see, with the parameters and with the return types, and with individual details of the field, the constructor. As you see, if you remember, the add param tag now has picked up the parameters and it has output this information right here. The add throws tag has indicated to the customer that an illegal argument can be expected if the year equals 0, right? So whatever we have inserted in the tags automatically gets picked up by the HTML and converted into information inside our document. So we could very well hand out this document to the customer. It's an API, it's an application programming interface, so the user knows how to create in their client program, how to create a car, and how to interact with the car. So this is what your documentation will look like. So that covers how to read a UML, how to use the UML to create a class, how to use a client program to create car objects, and then how to insert Java documentation, how to run that in JGrasp, and create an HTML document, which is the API for the class that you have created.